Ladies and gentlemen, fans and coaches, welcome back to another episode of Coach Magic's NZCFL podcast. Hope everything's going well with you all. I'm Coach Magic, of course, head coach of Georgia State. As the time of me recording this, we recently just wrapped up week number 4, which means it's time for a recap and a look forward. I'm going to kind of mesh that in to each other now. Since we are 1/3 of the season way down, we will be going through a recap of mainly weeks 3 and 4. I mean, every part of the season really matters, but this is just kind of like the 1/3 recap. Pretty much is probably what I'm going to title this. I'm not too sure. I can't say quarter because quarter was week 3 by itself. This is including week 4, as well as a look forward into week number 5, and the pending future for some teams. Quick shout out. I do want to shout out the SEC commissioner as well as head coach of Alabama, Not Yet. Let me check to see if I'm saying that right. I always read it as not yet. I am reading it as not yet. That's okay. That's what it is. Shout out to Not Yet because he gave me the idea to put time. What are they called? What's the word? I hate this. I hate when I start recording and I forget a word. Timestamps. There we go. Timestamps on the video, and just to make it a little bit easier for you guys. Usually I barely even edit these. It's just a raw recording. I put the logo on the thing, I put the thumbnail on the thing, and I ship it off to YouTube. And you guys hear it for the rest of the thing, because it's not like a huge thing. I'm not going viral off of this. It's just something for y'all. I'm making this good for you guys. So that's something. And also, if I'm staring off into, not staring off into space, that you couldn't even see it. If I ever go like silent for just a quick second, I'm looking at another baseball game. These keep me entertained while I'm doing these. So I want to start off just with a little precursor, just once again what we usually do, going through the rankings as well as standings, the winners of the past couple of weeks, moving on to the conference outlook once again, and then ending off with week number 5, the preview to that week as well. I did want to have an interview done for you guys, was not able to do that, so just to let you know, I guess I'll be doing a self-interview. Just thinking of questions that I could think of, and you guys get to hear me yap off about my team for once. Usually I try not to, but just one time you get to hear me talk about GSU. So first, as I maneuver over to the NZTV, we're looking at our week 4 rankings. I believe this is prior to week number 4, because I believe the rankings come out before each week as well. It did happen before game day, so I believe this is prior to week number 4. USC was number 1, followed by number 2 UCF, number 3 Virginia, number 4 Georgia, number 5 Alabama, which also says number 4 on the screen. You guys, small little typo error. Number 6 was Rice. Number 7 was UCLA. Number 8 was Michigan. 9 was Ohio State. 10 was Northwestern. 11 was Notre Dame. 12 was LSU. 13 was Buffalo. 14 was Michigan. 15 was Iowa State. 16 was Navy. 17 was Illinois. 18 was Texas Tech. 19 was Syracuse. 20 was Wake Forest. 21 was Georgetown. 22 was North Texas, 23 was Florida State, 24 was New Mexico, and 25 was Delaware. Just to keep those in mind before I go over the conference outlook as well as what actually happened in week number 4, because these ratings will change. They usually do week over week. As you can notice, Virginia Tech was not mentioned whatsoever in that one. They actually fell out of the rankings, breaking their streak, as Coke actually puts in this. Shout out to Coach Coke. They had a 44-game ranking streak going into week 3, and we weren't able to keep it. They actually lost to Florida State, and that broke their streak. They moved out of the top 25. So whether they get a chance to re-enter that depends on what they did in week 4, and if the ranking committee decides that, hey, we can put them back there. But in other news, Michigan State, the team that Coach Coke actually coaches, has a chance to move ahead of them on the streak on all time, moving to number 16 spot. VT's streak of 44 was actually the number 16 spot. So Michigan State, if they go past that, they will get the 16th spot and hopefully look to push into the top 15 as well. So I'll move on now to what actually happened weeks number 3 and 4, just for those people that were kind of lost after that, why these rankings are what they are. As I get to weekly schedule right here, moving back to week 3, this week 5 slate looks pretty decent. I hate to say that, decent. No. Okay, so entering week number 3, this of course pivotal. This was the first week of conference play. And I believe it was also the first conference games in new conferences for 2 teams, the teams that got swapped with each other, UAB and GSU. I don't believe any other team moved conferences throughout last offseason. So, yes, these were just 2 for this year. Just 2 debuts and for the inaugural season for both these teams in a different conference. So that's something good for them. Not in different conference in general, just in the conference that they left, I should say. Because while GSU has only been in one other conference, UAB could fathom that has been in more than one conference. So there they go. Moving on. To start off, Georgetown beat Harvard, and it was a pretty big game for Georgetown. They had a really good game to start off week number 3 in their first conference game as well. It was a big win for them, moving ahead of the Crimson, especially with Harvard being in their division. That's a game that they definitely could use the win for. I bring that up because I will be talking about Harvard in a minute, which is why I generally want to bring attention to them. So keep Harvard in the back of your mind as well. But for this game, our opening game of the conference slate, Harvard's Cam Reynolds, 18 for 36, so 50% completion there with a touchdown and 2 ints. Just not too much of enough, actually. They needed way more from their impact players to avoid a 30-12 loss, which is what they took in this game. That being, Georgetown outran them by about almost 74 yards. And they outpassed them by almost 100. So they did really good on both sides of the ball when it came to it. Of course, they had costly penalties. But honestly, it didn't cost them too much, apparently, because neither one of those penalties that they had really led to much of anything for them. I mean, they only gave up about 65 yards in total off of penalties, which, even 1 yard is one too many for a lot of the great coaches. But as far as Georgetown was aware, they were in control of that game. They didn't have much to fret about. So we went on to that. We did see a good game from Jamal Gillette, that being Georgetown's quarterback. 21 completions for 2 touchdowns as opposed to the 1 interception that he threw. So, like I said, really good game for Georgetown there. And the next one, Delaware ended up beating Yale, another big conference game for the Americans North Division, because whereas Harvard and Yale, the 2 rivals, tier 2 in the North Division, you have Yale even tier 3. They were 0-3 at that point. It's not really too good for them. But you have Delaware and Georgetown taking big wins within the conference. And I believe both teams also won week number 4 as well. Let me check just to make sure. We have to scroll all the way down here. It looks like, unless I just passed them. They're usually up in the schedule. Okay, Georgetown did win. I believe that was a game day option because of Georgetown. I'm not sure. I remember the coastal coach saying something about him being in game day, and I was like, oh, who they play? And I looked and it was Georgetown, and it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then Delaware. Where is Delaware? Am I just avoiding Delaware? Let me control W right here. Okay, they beat Bowling Green. So yeah, both teams did win in week 4 as well. Both teams are 4-0. Both teams, these are the 2 teams I told you to watch out for in the AAC North because they're just, the top 2 teams at the echelon of their division. And whoever wins that bloodbath battle has to go to war with UCF, which is not a, small task whatsoever. It's a very tall glass of water. to go up against the UCF Knights, who in week 3 prior to week number 4 were ranked number 2. Ranked number 2, and they should still be ranked pretty high within the next couple of rankings, because they demolished Miami in week number 4, 55-10. Where was Central Florida in week number 3? Demolishing Memphis, 55-14. So, the past 2 games, 55 points without giving up 15 or more both times. Just 2 opponents that you would expect this from. UCF is a very powerful team, and when you're a very powerful team, when you're a good team, one of the better teams in the nation, there just aren't many other teams that can go up against you and hold their own, or for better lack of a term, compete with you. That's a big thing within college. It's not like the parity that a professional league may have. It's what can your best recruits do against recruits who may be 10 times better, so pretty interesting matchup between Delaware and Georgetown this year, I would imagine, because they can easily see that one being for the division as well. Up next, Princeton dropped their game against UConn in week number 3, 34-31. It was a clincher. That was UConn's first win of the season, that being a conference win over them. Princeton may be one of the lower teams, them and Yale themselves. So far, Harvard, the best of the Ivies. Not too bad. Not too bad for them. And we should see Harvard do some pretty interesting things, maybe, potentially, this season. If they can pull up another upset, which I'm alluding to, I will talk about in a second, they could probably be pretty good for themselves. Louisville dropped it to SMU, that being Southern Methodist's first win in the season. It was 22-20. Tim Allen in this game, he is running back for Louisville. He had 20 rushes for 204 yards and a touchdown. Willie Webb, quarterback for them, also ran for a touchdown. His one rush was a 21-yard touchdown, I should say. And moving on, the really impact player here, Southern Methodist quarterback J.R. Williams, 14 for 21, a 66.7 completion percentage. So that's 2/3 of his passes all completed for 132 yards, 3 touchdowns to no interceptions. He outgunned Willie Webb as far as scoring came. This was a very not really a high caliber game per any chance. Louisville's Webb, he had 146 yards on his 13 completions, so he completed more passes for more yardage. Well, one less pass for more yardage. What I'm saying, he had more passing yards, but didn't get a single touchdown. He didn't throw an interception either. It was pretty good for him. Got sacked one time for 11 yards. Williams got sacked one time, and he didn't lose any yards. So overall, just a pretty good game for Williams, and it led to Southern Methodist coming out with a 2-point win, that being secured on a last-minute field goal in the fourth quarter, about 3 minutes and 40 seconds to go by Cesar Scurry. So that was a 34-yarder to clinch the game, and they just never looked back within those last couple of minutes of the fourth. So very interesting start to the conference for Southern Methodist. Moving on, Cincinnati ended up getting a win against South Florida. It was their first win of the season. 35-28, and in that game, Ken Thomas, he's a quarterback, and he plays for Cincinnati. He's their starting quarterback. He was 21 for 33 with 2 touchdowns and an int. On the other side of the ball, Donovan Nelson, he tried his hardest to get this Bulls back in the game. 294 yards for 2 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions as well, and 4 sacks for 34 yards lost. Just not too great for South Florida's quarterback, even though he did complete 33 passes, threw the ball a lot more. He actually completed the same amount of passes that Ken Thomas on the other side of the ball attempted. So he was getting the ball to his receivers. They just couldn't clinch it in. As South Florida dropped it 35-28, and it was on the last second punt return touchdown, last minute punt return touchdown. The game was tied at 28. Cincinnati won it on a 58-yard punt return touchdown by Josh Schroeder. That was his first punt return touchdown, possibly of the season at that point. So, a very exciting way to start the conference for Cincinnati. Their first win on a very clutch play. And it's usually those unlikely heroes that pop out in the college football world. You see it all the time. People like Lance Austin. Nobody really expected that much out of him. He was a part of the Georgia Tech Kick Six, the Miracle on Techwood Drive. For Cincinnati, this might be a miracle in Tampa. Moving on, we have Duke, who just barely dropped their first game of the season to that point, 23-26 over Army. Army is looking very strong throughout their first 3 weeks, and of course, one of the higher powers in the college football world, as they moved on after that game to week number 4 to face Mizzou. And that's another game I do want to talk about. Mizzou going against Army, as well as Northwestern going against Harvard, because those are some pretty interesting upsets there. Virginia ended up beating Clemson to stay undefeated at week number 3. That was 30-27, and eventually would go on to destroy Arkansas State. It was just not having a good time whatsoever. They're 0-4. During week number 4, Virginia ended up winning 76-21 against them. So far, throughout the first couple of weeks, we're seeing good play from the Cavaliers, especially the quarterback they have starting, Jordan Ferry. He has 18 touchdowns to only 1 interception this year. Marvelous efficiency from that guy. I mean, he's leading this Cavalier offense to great wonders. And, oh my goodness, he threw that ball into the stands. I'm sorry, I'm watching baseball. He's leading this Cavalier offense to marvelous wonders, as Raymond Israel, he's got 3 touchdowns. Anthony Jones, he's got 7 touchdowns, big producer. And even then, outside of just passing, even in the running game, Xavier Eldridge, 56 rushes for 462 yards and 5 touchdowns. And like I always say, when you're averaging more than 8 yards per rush, you're doing something right. He's got 8.3 throughout every rush that he's taken. Even all the way down, it's just a very good time to be a Virginia Cavalier fan, because they're one of the more solid teams in the nation right now. Moving on, Florida State, of course, they beat Virginia Tech 24-23. This was the game that broke Tech's streak. It was Tech's first loss, actually, of the season. And just how do you bounce back from that is what Virginia Tech is probably thinking right now. It's kind of similar to when they ironically beat West Virginia to push West Virginia out of the rankings, as well as a game that, probably could have swung either way. This one as well probably could have swung either way. There was just coin flipped whoever would get that last point, and it was the Seminoles who pulled it down. Virginia Tech would end up going to week number 4, and let's see what they did there. In week number 4, Virginia Tech would go on to beat the Louisville Cardinals 38-24. This being their 3rd win of the season. They're starting off 3-1 to start the season, which is, a fair bit of teams are starting off 3-1 to start the season. Not too terrible for them. And in this game, their defense really showed up for them, as well as their offense coming in. They got a last-minute field goal to kind of last-minute touchdown to ice the game. However, going into the 4th quarter, they're already up 10, so it really didn't matter much of anything. And it's just because Louisville struggled to get going to start it off. They got 1 touchdown to start the game, so 7-0 lead, and then didn't score again until almost the end of the 2nd quarter. Louisville just couldn't push it off. I mean, listen, Willie Webb, their quarterback, he only had 12 completions, and 3 of his 28 passes were intercepted. Virginia Tech's defense showed up like there, and that's really what's winning them some of these games. They're just very consistent on the defensive side. And over here on the offensive side, they're doing big things as well. Josh Corley, their wide receiver, the main target for today, he was 12 targets for 8 receptions and 107 yards. His longest being 28 with 2 touchdowns as well. And I don't think that his 2 touchdowns actually were that longest. No, one of them was 20, one of them was 18. So, but he was putting up numbers on the board, and that's what you want. You want your best players. You want those people that you send out on every drive to do good things when it comes to that stat sheet because it's showing up in the game. It's showing up in the win column. Even if those yards aren't going for touchdowns, all the yards in the world, that helps your team. That helps set somebody else up. So, usually getting a lot of yardage means you're going to have a pretty good game, and that's what they did, while also preventing Louisville from really getting anything going. Up next, in week number 3, Navy dismantled Notre Dame to give them their first loss of the season. It was 50-13. Notre Dame moved on that next week to face their third out-of-conference opponent, their penultimate one, actually, because we do not have any more OOCs up until week number 8. It was a 34-31 win over Pittsburgh, almost a scare for them. Bullseye Dart in that game had 315 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Irish. Those close games and even those, that loss, which is, it's never easy to lose by a big margin, let alone give up a 50-piece and not even answer back with much of anything. So it's never easy to do that. Even when you give up 5 touchdowns passed by Isaac Gardner, 5 touchdowns and 470 yards on the passing side. I mean, that just an amazing game for him. It's never easy to do that just because you have to, live with that up until the next week. You try to shake it off in between every other week. But I know as a coach, it kind of haunts you for a little while because now, it's a little bit of a doubt. It's a little bit of, hey, are we really that team that we think they are? And I got to imagine even for the players, it can be a little bit rough as well. So moving on, Miami got their first win of the season against Georgia Tech. It was 23-13 as we looked at both teams for week number 4 as well. That was their week 3 matchup. Week 4, we know about Miami getting demolished the rest of the way to UCF. Georgia Tech did not fare much of anywhere better because they had to face Georgia. Clean old-fashioned hate rivalry right there, and this one was a clean old-fashioned beatdown. 97-24. 3 points away from a 100-point game, which I believe the last time Georgia did that a couple seasons ago against Auburn. It was, 100-2, I remember, or something like that, and I believe that was a scoregami as well. I wouldn't be surprised if 97-24 is a scoregami. Tech just, where do you begin? I mean, silver lining, you scored 24 points against Georgia. Usually when you score 24, you have a fighting chance. This was just probably not even you scoring 24. This was Georgia giving you 24. Just to put in perspective how badly this game went for the Yellow Jackets, even though it was a home game, was this a home game for them? I believe it was. No, away game for them, actually. Yeah, the home is on the left side on this screen. Away game for them. So they went between the hedges. They went into Sanford, came to Athens, probably expecting to keep it close. And, hey, up until the second quarter, it kind of was close, 7-7 to end the first. And then they gave up 35 points in the second, 28 in the third, and didn't score anything back. And 27 in the fourth to make that a 97-point game. But not only that, they gave up 612 passing yards and only managed to muster up 53 back. So not even a full football field's length of passing yards. That's 5 first downs and 3 more yards on top of that. That's all they got from the passing department. They won the rushing game, 341 yards for them as opposed to Georgia's 226. Didn't really matter. Giving up 85 yards on the point. The penalty side of the field, 8 penalties for them as well. And even then, Georgia Tech just doesn't have a true quarterback. I mean, Ryan Keller, their wide receiver who was passing for them, he had 17 attempts and got injured. He's out with a fractured thumb now, so not much passing for him to do. And eventually their quarterback, Joey Taylor, came in and he got 17 attempts, completing 2 of them for 15 yards. He got sacked 3 times for 18 yards as well, so that was there. And then Aaron Kimmel just had the game of a lifetime. 612 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, only sacked once for 9 yards, and probably gained 18 right back. It just seems like Georgia could do no wrong in this situation. 47 attempts, 43 completions. Aaron Kimmel, you're insane, dude. That's a 91.5 completion percentage for 154.2 QBR. So for Georgia, they did pretty good in week number 4. as I'll eventually look at them at week number 3. I'm trying to multitask both of this just so I don't have to do 1 week at a time. Down as we look at Wake Forest, they went against North Carolina. They won 20-0. They were 3-0. It was an overtime win, and that overtime win came on a field goal by Sean Bronson. It was a 33-yard field goal with about 4 minutes and 23 seconds left. That win over the Tar Heels, and during that Tobacco Road type of game, those are the ones that really mean a lot for the people in Winston-Salem. So seeing them win that was very good for them. I can imagine their fans are elated. And then in week number 4, Wake Forest came through. And who was their opponent this week? This was out of conference. I'm sorry, I'm looking for them. They came through and won another nail biter, this time against 0-3 Maryland, now 0-4 Maryland. It was 44-40. And in both of these games, Sam Thompson just did his best to keep his team in the game. And eventually they ended up winning this one off of a pass that he completed to Matt Shabazz for 7 yards and that touchdown. It was his 10th passing touchdown of the season. And then for Shabazz, it was his first receiving touchdown of the season. Thompson, Wake Forest quarterback, the Demon Deacon at the helm, he had 4 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, 22 for 36. What I really want to look at here, though, is their running back, Nick Kamara. 13 rushes for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns, 8.8 yards per attempt here with his longest being 16. Pretty good. It just seems like they were just running all over Maryland as they got 223 yards in total. 162 for the Deacons, 223 for Maryland. Maryland, funny thing here, they won the passing game and the rushing game. Got more yards on both sides of the ball. Just couldn't pull it out because of that last second touchdown that Thompson threw. It just seemed like an offensive duel. Both of the defenses were kind of laxed on this one. 84 points combined. You know that's going to be a good game if you're a fan of offense. Later down the line, as I move back here to week number 3, Houston couldn't get it done. They get their second loss of the season on that week. They lost to Colorado. The Buffaloes actually getting their first win of the season, surprising for them. But they did play some pretty decent, good teams in the first 2 weeks. It was 35-27 for them. Nebraska took their first loss. The Texas Tech Red Raiders were undefeated following week number 3 as they won 42-17 pretty handily against the Cornhuskers. Probably a big reason why they're no longer in the rankings. They dropped badly. However, for Texas Tech, it helped them get up pretty good. They were new following the end of week number 3. And then to solidify it in week number 4, Texas Tech would go up against, that's Nebraska right there. I'll see them in a second. Texas Tech would go up against UCLA, and they just couldn't get it done. They took their first loss, 38-41, just 3 points off of that, where the Bruins are now undefeated. They're also a very good team. It's not hard to see why TTU did lose that, but they did keep it very close. And if you can keep it close with UCLA, you're probably a very good team yourself. The winning touchdown came late in the fourth quarter. It was actually a game-winning touchdown. Buzzer-beater type activities. With just 1 second left in the game, Austin Dye completed a pass to Joe Sullivan for 5 yards, and that secured the touchdown there. After TTU took the lead with 1:03 left, they just put too much time on the board, and that was a field-long drive pretty much for UCLA. Dye would end up with 3 touchdowns as well as 3 interceptions by himself. And then on the other side of the ball, Joshua Shine had a touchdown and an interception. You have to talk about Austin Dye here because he's a very good quarterback. We're seeing that throughout his stats for the season. He's actually 3-0 in his QBR to start the year. 89 completions for 1,000 yards already, 1,006 yards and 7 touchdowns. And games like this show why. I mean, the guy, he has that kind of clutch factor that you want. UCLA's really got the win. And then for the Bruins to win in such late fashion, got to be heartbreaking for Red Raiders fans. especially after big games put up by their receiving core. Clinton Rozier, he had 7 catches off of 11 targets for 79 yards. And the only receiver to get a touchdown recorded here was Casey Powell. He had 1 receiving touchdown for 51 yards on his 3 catches as well. But looking down here to their rushing attack, Kendall Butler led the way with 16 rushes and 94 yards. He had a touchdown. Alex Turner had 2 touchdowns himself, 13 and 4, 62 he was. And, this is another one of the games where it just came down to the wire. TU looked like they were going to come out, get the win, maybe even shock the world a little bit, because for as much as we talk about UCLA, Texas Tech is kind of one of those dark horses that, can fly under the radar a little bit, just because, you're always thinking about the high-powered teams, the Virginias, the Navies, those high-powered teams that show up everywhere, show up in the recruiting column every week, show up in the win column every week. You don't even look at their games because you don't expect them to lose. Texas Tech is one of those teams that can hang with them, but they don't get a lot of coverage as far as the general mind might think. So almost a big win for them. Barely couldn't pull it out. So hopefully they can bounce back within the next week. Just to speed things up here, I will go by and look at some of the higher power games. Just, those games that you really want to watch out for. Moving on, Northwestern actually beat Wisconsin in week number 3. 35-30 there. And for Wisconsin, they started off the first 3 weeks winless. Very shocking here. It's something that kind of predicted by Coach Koch. He said it would be an off season for them as well. There's Northwestern even. Well, not Northwestern. What was the other team I said? Ohio State. But it's looking like, hey, with this win, Northwestern may clinch their division, possibly. But it's kind of blown wide open by the next week because Northwestern, this is what I was alluding to, actually got upset by Harvard. They got upset by Harvard. They lost. It was a 24-17 game. The Crimson defended their home turf, and they're 3-1 as well as Northwestern. So it's looking like, hey, Harvard might have a little something in them this year. They might have a little fire under them this year. I was also talking about Missouri earlier. Not only did they beat Iowa in week number 3, 62-23 to start off their conference play, in week 4 they would again win to start off 3-1 this season. They beat Army, the Black Knights. It was 28-23. And in this game, Mizzou outpassed the Knights 337 yards to 151. They just barely lost the rushing game. They even gave up more penalties. It just kind of didn't matter because they were up 28-17 late in the game. Keith Hand had a passing touchdown for Army to Hamilton Williamson, 6 yards and a touchdown there, but they failed a 2-point conversion to kind of close the gap, and that was the last score of the game. It was already too late with 1:40 left, and Missouri getting the ball back. They just had all the control in the world. And what happened after Army had took a 14-9 lead at halftime? They just gave up points. I mean, they only scored 9 points in general in the second half, as opposed to giving up 19 points for Missouri in the the second half. And it even came with Missouri getting back-to-back touchdowns on different drives, getting a touchdown to open up the third quarter to get the lead, and Army only responding back with a field goal. So it just seemed like Missouri they had an answer to Army, and Army was just slacking off, just not really taking their opponent seriously, I guess. Didn't have much to say for them as well. As we look at Keith Hand, their quarterback, he only had 1 touchdown, didn't throw any interceptions. He was 17 for 28, 151 yards on the day. You really can't fault him. But in the grand scheme of things, he kind of just got outpassed. Graham gets hurt. Gear. I did talk about him before. I still don't know how to pronounce that. Is it a soft G or a hard G? And soft G makes sense, Graham Jeter. But it's not a J. It's a G. Where is he from? He's from Oklahoma. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. He had 27 completions on his 44 attempts. He just barely had 61.4 passing percentage as opposed to hands 60.7. And same amount of touchdowns, same amount of interceptions, just way more yards. They just trusted their passing game a little more, and that kind of gave it up to them. As Army's defense just really had no answer when they got in the zone, and that's why they probably gave up so much. I did talk about Wisconsin earlier. I will talk about them again. They actually got their win, their first win of the season, beating Alaska Anchorage in week number 4. UAA is 0-4 to start off their season, still searching for a win. Whereas Wisconsin 1-3 now, just got their first win. Other teams that got their first win in week number 4: Yale beating Air Force 44-10, Princeton beating UAB 27-3, Toledo beating Arizona 35-21. Moving on down, there's still teams searching for their first win. Auburn got their first win. It was a 35-21 beating over Southern Mississippi. The Golden Eagles still winless so far. Boise State got their first win over San Diego State. They beat the Aztecs 35-20. They're both 1-3 to start off now. SDSU is not looking too great for them, and you do have to watch out for them because they play in such a division with powerful teams at the top. 2 powerful teams at the top. And for Boise State, they're in that Mount West, which is just struggling outside of 1, maybe 2 teams. Not the best you can say about them. Moving on down, I believe that might be the last couple of teams that got their first win this week. There are a lot of teams still searching for their first win. A couple teams not even having their first loss yet, so that's pretty decent, pretty good for them. Iowa State, Iowa. Now, Iowa State had already gotten plenty of wins, they're 4-0. I do want to look at this just because it's a matchup, the Cyhawk Trophy, big rivalry game there. Iowa State, statement win, 66-7 over them. And Colin Johnson had 5 touchdown passes. He had 542 yards in that, and he actually added 82 rushing yards as well. Later on here, Purdue got their first win. The Boilermakers, 24-22, just squeaking by Mississippi. As Mississippi takes an embarrassing loss, especially for that division that you're playing. Not really what you expect. I mean, they outpassed them by a lot. They just got beat on the ground. 132 rushing yards they gave up here. It was actually those rushing yards that came up clutch for them. Mississippi was trailing for a lot of the game. They actually ended the third quarter losing 24-12. It was 24-9 at one point. And they were coming back. They managed to come back within 2, just didn't have enough time. Actually, they had plenty of time. They just couldn't get nothing else after that. Matt Crawford, he had a 63-yard touchdown to Paul Horse that he passed for. It was his 11th touchdown pass of the season. But that was with 3 minutes left, 3 minutes and 27 seconds left. And the Boilermakers, their defense just held on for as long as the game. They could have given up a field goal to lose this game, and they didn't. So, big game for the Boilermaker defense right there as they got their first win in shocking fashion. You probably wouldn't expect Mississippi to lose to Purdue right there. Onward, 4th, as we get to... there's the game Nebraska played after that loss that they took. They actually won 90-0 over South Dakota State. Another big popping win over there. A shocking game happened right here. Texas defended Austin 37-34, beating NIU to push them to 0-4 in the season, but it was a double overtime game. Last second field goal, not last second because it's already overtime. Ended the game field goal to end it off. Martell Ayers, 23 yards in double overtime, the second OT. And in this game, NIU's Deshaun Ryan. For the Huskies, he had 28 passing completions for 2 touchdowns, only gave him 1 interception. And probably a big reason why Texas Tech got pushed to the limit right here. And Lionel Curry, no touchdowns this game, no interceptions. He had 30 completions for 494 yards, so you really can't blame this on him. But maybe you got to think, maybe if one of his touchdown or one of his plays goes for a touchdown, of course they win this game probably in regulation, then take a second time. And then down here, as we look at the defense, now this is probably another good reason why this game went on for so long. A lot of tackles here. 3 NIU players in double-digit tackles. Same way on the board for Texas, with another one having 8, that being Michael Artson, their linebacker. And they did not give up an interception, either team. Well, one team, NIU, did get picked off by Colin Bird. He didn't go anywhere with that one, though. And then down here, as we look at their stats, Texas outpassed, got outran by a huge margin. They gave up 248 rushing yards, as opposed to NIU only giving up 83. But this game, both teams just looked very similar throughout the entire game. That's why it's such a vague game. Neither team scored in the first quarter. Both teams gave up 13 in the second. And then getting down to the third and fourth, NIU scored 7, Texas scored 6. And then the fourth, NIU scored 14, Texas scored 15. So it was just both teams went up in each other up until it came down to overtime. And obviously, only one person can win, that being Texas. And they just didn't want to score. It seemed like that was a pretty long game, maybe one of the longest of the seasons. I've only seen a couple of OT games. This one went into double, so there was something else. Another OT game, Stanford got an upset win in overtime. Both teams are now 3-1. They beat the Michigan State Spartans to give them their first win of their first loss of the season, I should say. Stanford, with only one loss, sitting pretty at 3-1 record, and this one went into overtime as well. As we look down, Michigan State won on the rushing battle, won on the passing battle, gave up less penalty yardage. Even though they had one more penalty, it was still for less yardage. It wasn't just, one of those games where one thing goes wrong, and for them, it was a missed field goal with 3 seconds left in the fourth. Tie game right there. And actually, it was giving up a lot of points early. To start the fourth quarter, they gave up a field goal and a touchdown to Stanford. It was tied at the end of the third quarter, 14-all. And even then, for Michigan State, this is a matter of you got to score, you got to take advantage, and you can't let Stanford get ahead of you like that, because as we've seen it plenty of times before, when you don't score at all in a quarter, let alone score low in a half, your chances of winning go down lower and lower and lower. For Michigan State, they only had 7 points to end the first half. It was 7 points in the first quarter. They were winning 7-0, and then they gave up 14 to Stanford. The Cardinal ended up pulling through. It was 14-7 at the half, and then of course they gave up their touchdowns, 10 points in total in the fourth quarter as well. 17 points in the second half for Michigan State, but it was just not enough, because during that overtime period, Stanford would get a touchdown to pull into the lead and win the game. That final touchdown being Anthony Starks rushing for 3 yards, and he got it in. Trevor Stout made the extra point. That was actually the last score of the game in general, with about 4 minutes left. And then as we look at Ben Hale, Michigan State's quarterback, he was 18 for 33 with 210 yards. He had 2 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Gave up quite a couple of sacks, 4 sacks for 14 on the day. Over here, and you really can't blame a lot of people for this one. It was a tight game. It's just you have to know how to convert. And for this one, Ricky Williams, 28 rushes for 146 yards, 5.2 on the day. Pretty much average, pretty much where you want to be, and a touchdown there. He was looking pretty okay. But down here, as we get into the Stanford's passing game, and this is probably a good thing for them. They didn't have any passing touchdowns at all, but they were moving the ball pretty well. Nick Moore, their wide receiver, he had 16.8 yards per reception. That's really good for him. Good for wide receivers. You want them to get, my basis is first down at least, and kind of like how I say, running backs should get about 7 yards, 8 yards per run. That's good for them, because that opens up the running game, that opens up the passing game. When you get over 15 yards per catch as a wide receiver, especially targeted 10 times, caught the ball 5 of them. So 5 times out of the day, you got on average more than 15 yards. That was pretty good. That was very good for you. Because you're helping your team, even though it didn't show up with a touchdown, you're still helping your team when it matters the most. So, big one right there. Big one right there for the Cardinal. Last couple of games here. Moving on to this right here. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the screen again. A lot of teams, just not too much other than that really happened. A lot of teams took care of business. A lot of teams paid for what they played. The last team to get their first win this season was North Carolina State. They beat UNLV, beating the Rebels 52-23. And not much you can say about this game. It's just a team that, struggled throughout the early season, going up against a team that probably should struggle throughout the rest of the season in UNLV. And for the Wolfpack, pretty good to get their first win. Get that monkey off their back right there. Get those demons off of them. Because now, hey, at least we're not winless. At least we're better than quite a couple of teams in the nation. Because there still are some winless teams out there. I know Grambling State, Arkansas State, Utah. They're winless as well. Oklahoma State, the Cowboys, they're winless as well. They started off 0-4. NIU, we talked about, they're 0-4. So it's Maryland, they're 0-4. Mississippi State's 0-4. I wouldn't doubt that Utah State was also 0-4. Memphis is 0-4. So it's South Florida is 0-4. The list keeps going. Montana's 0-4. The list keeps going. But it's easy. It's elative. You should be elated to get your first win because it puts you above that type of that level of team, that tier team. Now, obviously, you want to have more wins. You'd at least want to shoot for 2-2, 3-1. But at least you got your first win within the first third of the season, and hopefully you beat your on pace. Because if this continued up until the end of the season at this pace, you're only looking at 3 wins this season. 3 wins compared to the 9 losses. That's your first third. No, Utah State actually had a game win. Wow. Yeah, 3 wins to 9 losses is what you're looking at throughout this season. So hopefully they can outplay that pace and get it back on track, which is what a lot of these teams need to do because there are plenty of teams who have 1 or less than 1 win, even less than 2 wins. So that wraps it up for this the weekend review. As I want to look at now standings and the conference outlook as well. How long is this video? Wow, that was long. I'm really trying, guys. I'm sorry. This one I wasn't too excited about. We'll see in a minute. But as we get on to here, I'll do this by conference and we'll open it up like that instead of just by division so I can all see the one table. At the top of the ACC are the Virginia Cavaliers and the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, both undefeated. At the bottom, we have Miami and Georgia Tech, both with only 1 win apiece. The only 2-2 team is Clemson, and everybody else is 3-1. This is probably the antithesis to the Mount West. This is probably the antithesis to the Mount West because this is a team full of, a conference full of teams who so far are pretty much, showing that they might be good for the season. I mean, you have teams who are on pace for double-digit wins. Quite a couple of teams who you could realistically say will probably get 8 or 9, maybe 10 wins, more than 10 wins. And then you have those other teams, like even down all the way, only 3 teams have less than 3 wins. As we get down there. Sorry, I had to take a drink to clear my throat. Only 3 teams have less than 3 wins, and one of them's 500 still. So, you can't put down the ACC as probably one of the better conferences in the nation right now. It's just because they have so many teams at the power level, and even those teams that aren't at the power level, like Wake Forest, they're still winning pretty good. Even though they might not have the strength of record, hey, you still at least won 4 games as well. So 100% win percentage for 2 of these teams. We'll see if they can keep that up. as we move down, because I feel like I did talk about the ACC teams a little bit. As we move down to the Big Ten, this is another conference that this one actually had some shockers here. Only one undefeated team, that being Illinois, the Fighting Illini. So far, 4-0. They're keeping up together. Their starting quarterback, Kenny Holick. He's had 6 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, and 682 yards on the season. So far, he's looking like he's, passing the ball very well. And it makes sense because he has a really good target in Douglas Clemens, 74 overall wide receiver. And even though he's not super fast, he catches the ball. He has 24 catches for 259 yards and 3 touchdowns. And even down to Caden Barham, Dwayne Green, Paul Fisco, they've got some targets for Kenny to hit, which is, a good reason why he's doing so well this season. Justin Skelton, they're starting running back. He has 69 rushes, nice, for 481 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he's averaging 7 yards per rush. I mean, hey, that's 0.7 of a first down every time he touches the ball, it seems like. So they're doing pretty good for himself as well. Even on the D-line, we have a whole bunch of tackles. 11 for Keeley right here. And even after him, we have some that are up there with 9 each, those being Anthony Compton and Robert Henderson, who actually did get hurt. He tore his ACL. Not great. Not great. He's definitely out for the season. I believe he got med-shirted. Maybe we're redshirted. I have to look at that. But for this team, so far, it's been clicking on all cylinders. They got all their ducks in a row. Everything's in order for the Illini. And they've got a whole host of 3-1 teams right behind them, only a game behind them. But you do have those teams at the lower level, those Purdue's, the Indianas, the Iowas, and Wisconsin. Wisconsin, surprisingly. Even though their point differential, they're winning in that case, they couldn't keep it together. As I do want to look at Wisconsin's schedule right here, just to show what's been going on for them. That first loss to North Texas, followed up by just a stomping by Nebraska, probably kept them just close-minded when it came to how well this season could be. And then that barely clinching loss, 5-point loss to Northwestern in week number 3 to start off your conference schedule. That hurts the team. That really hurts the team. That hurts the team's confidence. And they needed games like that win against Alaska Anchorage, that 77-10 win against Alaska Anchorage. And this upcoming game that they do have against Iowa, they should win that. Keyword should. Whether they will or not, it's to be seen and yet to be determined. But this should be a game that they win. They should get their second win of the season to move up to 2-3 on the year. And to move up to 2-3 in a year and just kind of get some of their confidence back, because I feel like that's a big reason why the Badgers have faltered so much. They just didn't get the right first step that they wanted. Because some of these games were very close. I mean, they only lost by 3 to North Texas. They only lost to 5 to Northwestern. So it's looking like when it comes to those good games, those one-score games, it's kind of like the San Diego Padres. All the one-score games in the world, and if you're on the losing end of them, your record looks bad. You start to falter. You start to go, low, and you start to get behind, and that's just not what Wisconsin can afford, especially with this tough schedule of Illinois followed by Michigan coming up. Southern Methodist might be your last, that being your last OOC, as well as Purdue might be some of their last wins if they can't get it together against Minnesota. Rivalry game right there. Paul Bladen's ex, I believe. If they can't get it together against Michigan State, they can't get it together against Mizzou, who's 3-1 right now. And actually, at the top of the conference, those 3-1 teams. Moving on, we have the Big 12 Conference. This one has 3 teams unbeaten so far. That being Iowa State, Texas A&M, and TCU. As we get to TCU right here, their starting quarterback, the QB that they've been pushing out, is Courtney Mosley. He started every game for them. He's got 4 games under his belt. In those games, 9 touchdowns, only 3 hints. Looking pretty solid, looking pretty consistent. He has a 65% on the dot passing percentage for 937 yards as he looks to possibly break into the 1,000 yard category within the next couple of weeks. Maybe next week, maybe the week after. Depends on how their games go. I do want to look at Leroy Lightfoot, however. Not only does that, pretty great name for him. He's actually doing well with 89 rushes for 692 yards. He's got 8 touchdowns and 7.8 per average on those rushes for every game he's played. They've actually been running the ball very well for themselves. As all 3 of their running backs have gotten into the game and have put up stats on the board, actually. Even their backup, Philip Hardman, he's got 289 yards on 39 rushes, I should say. 5 touchdowns for him and 7.4 on the average as well. So it's like when they do run the ball, they run it pretty well. Even then, they look like they're probably outrunning their passing game. Even Hayden Lawrence, one of their wide receivers, he's been having a great year. He's got 19 catches for 232 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 12.2 average. Besides the average, he's looking like their leading receiver this year. Potential second option behind Anthony Pointer, I should say. But he's looking pretty like he's doing better than him so far throughout the early stages. He's got more catches. He's got more receiving yards, I should say. More touchdowns even. This guy's just a utility player that racks up a lot of stats just because he's right where he needs to be every time the ball gets down on the field. For TCU, you can't blame them at all for what they're going up with. Big win against Wyoming this past week. Big win against Oklahoma State the week before. Big win against Mississippi State the week before. Big win against Georgia Tech the week before. They're eating good because of what they play. It's looking like throughout the first 4 weeks that none of the teams that they did play are teams that you would expect to have any trouble against. Which is why the TCU is probably 4-0 right now. So whether that swings wildly with more conference games to be played, we shall see. As their next wins are against Oklahoma, who is 2-2, potentially a good win for them. They seem like a better team on paper. They got the spread. It's a big one, and they're way more in the overall side of things. So they got Oklahoma up, so they can be 5-0 in the season. But after that, you have 2 very tough games against Texas and Iowa State. Then you have your last OLC with Air Force, and they should win that one before going up against 4 straight Texas teams in a row, that being Houston, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, and Baylor. It makes sense for them being in the Texas division of the Big 12. But one thing I did notice with these Texas teams, they did not come to play this year. A lot of them are very solid on the board, so we can see TCU potentially taking some L's. But hopefully their 4-0 start kind of bolsters them, makes them look better on paper, makes them look better in the win column. Should be a team that's bowl eligible, should be playing in a bowl, and should be playing a pretty good opponent when it comes to that bowl game. Just because I feel like they probably get about 8 wins on the season, probably 8 or 9 wins on the season. As we look down here, there are 3 teams with less than 2 wins, that being Tulsa, Baylor, and Oklahoma State. Everything's falling apart for Baylor and Oklahoma State. But on the Tulsa side of things, same thing there. I mean, their only win to start, as I wait for this to load, their only win came against Montana State. It was a big win, so don't get me wrong. They beat a team that was perceived to be better than them. And the teams that they are playing so far have been Texas, Syracuse, and Georgia. We may never know how truly good that this Tulsa team is, just because the teams they play are just that much better than what they seem to be. Is they really don't have any much of an opening for another really good win for them up until like late season. When they start playing teams like Oklahoma State. Turnpike Classic right there, that's a big rivalry. But when they do play Oklahoma State, they should get a win there. But, look at who they're playing. They have to face Iowa. They have to face Texas. They have Baylor that they have to go against, I believe. Let me look back at this. Baylor that they have to go against, which, even though Baylor isn't looking too great right now, probably is a better team than Tulsa. They even faced Northwestern in their last OC. So it's looking like a big challenge for Craig Brewer and the Golden Hurricane. Brewer himself not having a great year whatsoever. Even though he's got 570 yards, he's only passing 45.2%. He has 1 touchdown and 7 interceptions throughout the first 4 games. And it's, their offense is just going against teams that they cannot beat. And not only that, they're just not having anything else good on the defensive side as well. Only 2 interceptions total, only 2 sacks total on their linebackers, and 5 sacks total, actually, between the whole defense. So, just not what you want right here for this team whatsoever. And when your team has 3 offensive linemen, in general, you're going to have a tough time trying to get anything started. And that shows. That really does show. That moves us down to the Pacific Coast Conference. As we get down, UCLA and USC are the 2 4-0 teams here. However, they're joined by a third, Washington State, still undefeated to start the season. Thomas Schroeder, he's been having a year. 1,832 yards to go along with his 13 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions that you can dock against him. He's been looking pretty solid against these first couple of teams that he's facing. But then again, you do have to look at it. Utah is 0-4 right now. Montana is 0-4 right now. Oklahoma State is 0-4 right now. Oregon State is 0-4 right now. So out of all the 4 teams that they faced, not only do neither of them have a win coming into the game, none of them have a win now. A combined 0-12. Well, not even 0-12. A combined 0-16. Combined 0-16 for the teams that they faced so far. So even though they're undefeated, you can see why. And they maybe get their first loss next week because they face Fresno State. It's their first team to have any sort of win in their schedule so far. And not only that, both same overall on paper. Fresno State has the spread. They have this spread. What else do they have? They have Zach O'Bannon. Good running back for them. He's got 58 rushes for 309 yards, 4 touchdowns in the year. Probably more rushing touchdowns himself than the teams that Washington State faces. So it's just kind of like having a season full of, season full of Mountain West, season full of whatever Rice and North Texas plays, season full of whatever New Mexico plays, that being Mountain West, season of whatever Troy plays, that being Sunbelt. This is just like Washington State having a season full of teams that they've, can beat and have beat so far. But it does change. Don't get me wrong. Their luck is running out soon. Not only do they have to face Stanford this year, they also have to face USC, the Trojans. So you can imagine how well they'll be doing. They have to face both Oregon and Washington to end their year at Apple Cup there, which is one they're looking to win so far. And then, of course, within the next couple of weeks, they'll be facing UCLA and Cal. So it's, these couple of first weeks, these are the ones that you want to really focus on because it's not going to look too pretty when you're facing big, strong teams like the Bruins and Trojans, let alone the rest of your schedule. We can see they can stay squeaky clean against Fresno State, however. As we get down to the end of the line, Oregon State and Arizona State still searching for their first win. Both of them so far, it's not been looking too good for them. They're just not putting together anything. As we look at also the teams with only one win, Fresno State, Arizona State, and San Diego State, they're not putting together much. Fresno State may put up together, something against Washington, but it's just unremarkable at the bottom of this conference. Which is what you can say for a lot of conferences. You can say teams are unremarkable. You don't think, twice about them. But I guess it's for a different reason here on the pack. It's unremarkable, because these aren't teams that are just constantly getting, demolished, destroyed, save for Arizona State, Arizona and Oregon State, even Arizona State to an extent. But, so far they've been keeping it Just even the 2-2 teams, Washington, there's just not much you can say about them. They have a 0-point differential. And besides that one game against Pitt, I wouldn't imagine they're been a part of too many other games where they had much to talk about. The Rutgers game, they won by 3. The Stanford game, their first conference test of the year, they lost by 2 touchdowns. And then they beat Air Force like they were supposed to. Got beat by Pitt, which is something I didn't have them doing. But that's really been low light of the season, kind of, and just talking point of the season for them. The Pac-12, Pacific Coast Conference, I should say, is really just cut and dry. The top teams win. The teams with an easy schedule win. We see Washington. The bottom teams flounder, it looks like. So, moving on down to the SEC. This is one that I didn't. Well, I'll save the team for last. This is where the interview comes in, by the way. The 4-0 teams, Georgia and LSU. Georgia, can we say much better than their competition that they've played so far? You have a plus 228. Plus 228 on the point differential, and that's because you face teams like Georgia Tech that you can destroy. You face teams like Auburn that you can destroy. You face teams like Oregon State that you did put up a good amount of points for, and even that being your lowest scoring game of the season. You still put up 49 in your lowest scoring game of the season. The fact that doesn't even look impressive is just because of how much we expect Georgia to destroy teams like this. Now, they do get their first big test, their first real test next week when it comes to facing LSU, who's also undefeated, the only other undefeated team in the conference so this far. But Georgia, for them being as back as they are, we're looking forward to them facing the LSU's, facing Mississippi, facing Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina down at the bottom of the year, especially that Florida game. I would expect that to be a really good one. We look forward to things like that because those are the games that you really want to look at. The wins over Tulsa are fine, but Tulsa is not an SEC opponent. Tulsa is not a top tier, top of the nation opponent. And you look towards those games like Florida because these are the ones that they make or break what you're going to do in the postseason. I don't doubt Georgia's going to be playing in the postseason. I don't doubt that they can have a fighting chance of being really good in the postseason. What I do doubt is how consistent they can be, and that comes with facing teams like LSU, which we'll face next week, to see how consistent they can be. Speaking of LSU themselves, they're 4-0. Dominic Gunter has been having a very nice season himself. He's gotten 1 interception and 868 yards, 12 touchdowns, a 66.1 completion percentage, and a total 123.2 QB rating. As he started off here, just starting the season, just great jump out the rip. They've had 4 good wins over, the opponents ranging from, Montana in South Florida to, me. GSU. Probably the best opponent that they faced so far. Even Clemson, great win for them. They won 42-23. In that game, Gunter had 3 passing touchdowns himself with 228 yards. Not bad. 228 yards. I believe that's Georgia's margin of victory so far. TJ Little, he's been having a year for him. 19 catches for 214 yards and a touchdown. 5 receiving touchdowns for Jason Alfuegbu. He's been doing really good. 238 for them. He's actually their leading receiver in everything but catches and average. He's just 0.1 down from average. And then on the defensive side, great play by their secondary, it looks like. 12 tackles out there for Chris Smith. He actually has the pass deflection as well. But what you do want to look at here, down at the CB side, multiple pass deflections, passes defended for all the top 4 CBs that have been playing games, that have recorded stats. Marvin Schaefer even has 11 tackles himself with 6 pass deflections himself. He's been showing out this year, being CB3, it looks like. But he might be playing some time at, maybe playing some safety. It depends. I don't look at their schedule or their roster like that. But beyond that game against Georgia, next week in which one of these teams has to take their first loss. So this is kind of like the battle to see who could be the last undefeated team in the SEC. Obviously, when two teams face, somebody has to win, somebody has to lose. It's probably a game where you want both teams to win just because it looks much better for them. And this is just competitiveness. This is the competitive spirit that we want. Beyond that, we have some easy games against Auburn and Mississippi State. Then they face Texas in their last OOC. And it really doesn't the schedule really doesn't clamp down for them up until late in the season when they have to face Mississippi and Alabama back to back. They still face South Carolina. They have a Golden Boot rivalry game against Arkansas at the end of the year, but should be a win for them easily. They have Magnolia Bowl. They have to face Auburn right after that. So those are the two games that you really want to look at. But it's not looking like Mississippi will be much to worry about with them being 2-2. So that win against Alabama probably wins the division if they do keep on the good schedule as well. Unless Alabama, drops another game. They're 3-1 so far. Following that last loss to Michigan, I believe. I believe it was Michigan a game day. Yeah, they did. It was their first loss of the season. But they did beat Florida. They beat Mexico. They beat Toledo. So Alabama's still looking like a pretty solid team as well, and just one game behind. So they win the games that they're supposed to win, and LSU loses one. Then we have tie, and then it comes down to that second to last game of the season. So this could be one of those GSU Troy situations where that happens. And then I want to look down at the bottom of the conference. We have Tennessee being 1-3, Arkansas being 1-3, Auburn being 1-3, and 0-4 Mississippi State, who's getting outscored. They've given up 80 more points than they've scored on the season. And just when your team doesn't have a quarterback, it gets all that much harder to do anything. It gets all that much harder to do anything, let alone win, which is something that they've not been doing whatsoever. And with the schedule that they play, I mean, yeah, their next 3 games, their next 3, 4, 5 games, their next 6 games that you just can't win. I mean, I don't see them beating Alabama. I don't see them beating GSU. They shouldn't beat GSU. Will they beat GSU? That's to be seen. I wouldn't even doubt it with GSU at this point. They shouldn't beat LSU. I don't see them beating LSU. I don't see them beating Missouri. I don't see them beating Florida. I don't see them beating Tennessee. Maybe they have a chance against Auburn. And then your very last game against Mississippi, Egg Bowl, that being a rivalry right there. Battle for the Golden Egg Trophy. I don't see them winning that. So, Mississippi, if they get lucky against Auburn, that's probably the only thing that they can rely on, getting lucky, to prevent them from having a winless season. And so far it's looking like luck might be what they need, because they don't score too much of anything. They've only scored over 15 one time. They got close the second time when a 41-14 loss this past week against Troy. They're getting close. It's hard. It's hard when you're missing so many important pieces, and when you're just don't have the depth. You don't have that level of skill in your players that other teams have, and you play in such a hard conference. You can expect them to have a very bad season this year. Getting on now, this is the part where I said interview. Georgia State. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to talk about GSU. I wanted to pass it, but I couldn't get the interview that I wanted. So we'll talk about this. What's next for GSU? 3-1, but it's not a good 3-1. Their first loss to LSU really hurt us pretty badly. And this is just kind of where the wheels fall off. I mean, we're beating teams like Kansas. We're beating teams like NIU. Even that one game, who else did we face? That one game against BYU, I put all my people on for that. I put all my recruiting visits for that, just because, hey, this is a game I think I can win. The games where I think I can win, those are the games that, we're not really worried about. That's like Sunbelt to me, but even having the spread just doesn't make me feel good. This game against Tennessee, we have a 0.5 spread. I don't feel good against that. That game against LSU, I did not feel good whatsoever against that. And even then, we were hurt. Brandon Leonard, he was out. And he didn't play whatsoever. And even then, Blair's been kind of picking up the pace, but he's just not as good. He's just not as good. And when you're in such a strong conference, you kind of want all that's good. Now, Leonard is coming back. He's only hurt for this next game against Tennessee, which, could mean another loss for us here. But it's just not. It's not going too great. I mean, on a recruiting scale, haven't gotten a single recruit yet, and a lot of teams do that. So, just where's my personal mindset? Uneasy is where I am, and I did expect that coming to the SEC. It's very different from the Sun Belt. You're facing very, better opponents. You have to now schedule like you're a better team. You have to now recruit like you're a better team just because you're up there with so many people to get up there. And it's just not looking like not the start of the season that we did want. Even though that one loss is probably the only one we should get. I did expect us to kind of lose there because whenever I did do test sims, it was like 50-50 against LSU. Sometimes we'd win, sometimes we'd, drop it. And that's what we're seeing against LSU. Just imagine what we see against Mississippi and Alabama. I don't expect that three-way tie anymore. I think it's a battle between Alabama and LSU for the division. Just because this isn't where I want the team to be, especially moving into the future. That's really what I'm worried about, is moving into the future, because so many of our top players and just about all of our defensive line are gone next year. I'm going to keep one D lineman, the way this is looking like. Yeah, I'm going to keep one. Besides Milburn. Did Milburn get red shirt or med shirted? Was he the guy that got injured and got med shirted? I believe so. So, maybe that's a little bit saving grace. If it was up to me, the whole team would get med shirted, because this is probably a team that I want to keep back for next year. Just because we lose so many good things. I mean, Van Valkenburg, he's gone. Who else? Van Valkenburg, he's gone. Grayer, he's gone. Grant, he's gone. Matthew Jones, he's out of here. Who else? Just the key people that you'd want. Toppard, he's gone. Even Terrell King. I grew to love these guys because they were dogs on the defense, and that's something that I did think really got us to this point, was just the solidarity in the defense. What can we expect in the future for GSU? I don't want a cupcake again. I do want to face teams that, will get me something if I beat them. It's just probably the end of the double-digit win streak in the season. Double-digit wins season streak. That's hard to say. So if it doesn't end, I may have to cupcake to try to get us back there, or I may just, swallow it up and take the 7, 8 wins, 9 wins probably, if we're lucky on that one. Other than that, this isn't where I want it to be. I did want to come here to try to better my position for a natty, because I do want to finish what Splat started. That's kind of the ultimate goal. So if I don't get it down here, I'll probably just have to rebuild, and I would hate to maybe end up like UAB in this conference. But every dog has their day. Every team eventually bounces back. So maybe 100 years down the line, we eventually bounce back and get what we have to get. So that's kind of where I want to be right now. Just looking forward to the future, not really focusing too much on here, and hopefully getting lucky with those RNGs. That's what killed us a long time when I was in the Sun Belt. That's what's killing me now. It's just you have to get lucky with those RNGs. Moving on to the Mountain West now, we have Hawaii being the only undefeated team after New Mexico. Their one loss was against Alabama out of conference as well. So New Mexico, I still maintain the fact that they can come out and be the best team here. And it's just looking like whenever they do face Hawaii, it's just the final game of the season for them. They probably move up to them. They probably move up to them after, before then, because Hawaii does have to face more teams. I believe they face Colorado State, I want to say, this year. No, they actually don't. Okay. But, Hawaii with their schedule, because of who they play, because of who's in their conference, you could expect them to have a pretty big season. I mean, outside of Montana State and Coastal, who's really going to stop them besides New Mexico? Nevada, I don't think I think they lose to Nevada. Utah's an easy win for them should be. San Jose State, easy win for them should be. UNLV, easy win for them should be. Air Force, this next game coming up, easy win for them should be. Even the teams that they did face before, Arizona, Colorado was probably their best chance of stopping them. They did face Colorado State and they actually beat them pretty handily, 26-20. So Hawaii is no slouch. They beat North Dakota State at that, 44-13. Hawaii is no slouch. It just depends on whether Hawaii can step face-to-face in Week 12 with New Mexico and come out with a win. I believe both of them probably end up with one loss on the season. And, well, let's look at New Mexico's schedule one more time. I need a refresher because I'm not sure if they've faced the team I'm thinking of in out-of-conference play. Buffalo, okay. So, yeah, it's between that Buffalo game because I feel like Hawaii probably does lose to New Mexico. That's probably their only loss. And if New Mexico does beat Buffalo, they both end up 1-1. That's the deciding game. So, as they look forward to them, New Mexico should have a good year. New Mexico should have another Tier 1 year, or maybe even a chance at a playoff this year. And then down at the bottom, we can really start after Colorado State here. UNLV, San Jose State, Nevada, Boise State, they all have one win. They're all 1-3. Utah, Montana, Air Force, and University of Alaska to Anchorage all looking for their first win. They're all 0-4. As we look down, probably the best one of these, the ones who's given up the least points, that being Air Force. However, the one who scored the most is actually all the way at the bottom, Alaska Anchorage. They're led by Jake Taylor. He's their starting quarterback. He's 4 touchdowns for 2 interceptions, 472 yards, and a 41% completion percentage. As we look down, is pretty much indicative of what we said this entire time. You don't have the depth when you're just facing better opponents. It's hard to bounce back, and that's something that none of those teams can do, really. You kind of lump them in with the bottom of the Sun Belt, even. Just teams are, not doing too great for themselves as well. Mid-American Conference. Number 1 team here is Buffalo. This is looking like out of strength of victory. That's what the game says. But there's actually a couple teams who haven't lost yet. Central Michigan, Syracuse, Western Michigan. As we look down on it, Central and Western, 2/3 of the Michigan MAC trophy. Eastern obviously not here, just watching from home. So they got to be, it's like that one meme with Squidward in his house looking out, SpongeBob and Patrick having fun. Central and Western are SpongeBob and Patrick, it looks like, out there doing their best, and you can only just wait for that final game of the season when they have to face each other. That'll be a great one. I think that could be a game where both of those two teams, very strong teams, go up against each other and they just give it their all. Maybe a gunslinging duel, maybe a defensive battle. But, what I can say is it'll probably be one of those games to watch. Just because it's two of those, those middle-of-the-pack teams which give us so much greatness out of each season. So that's something you do have to look out for Central and Western Michigan. Both of those two teams having very, great season starts to start off with. Undefeated. Even Western Michigan, they have a plus 116 in their point differential. And they're doing pretty good. Their defense has been clearing up, only giving up 32 points. It's actually the least amount of points given up by any of the teams that are unbeaten. And, of course, you have Syracuse Buffalo, which is also another game. I believe they played the last game of the season as well. I believe that's their rivalry. No, they played in the middle of the season, right after Syracuse plays Western Michigan. This is their Week 7 matchup, I believe. They face each other. Syracuse faces Boston College. That makes a lot of sense. What does Buffalo face? Is it Pittsburgh or West Virginia? Could be Rutgers. Oh, I wouldn't put it past. It's Ohio. Okay, they face Ohio for the last game of the season. Not every team's gonna have like a big rivalry in their last game of the season. That's to be seen. But both of these teams, when I say this is probably going to be the battle for the MAC, especially with a struggling West Virginia team who's 2-2 right now, probably should be playing a little bit better. They have the same record as Pittsburgh. backyard brawl looking like a good one this year. Moving on down, a few teams have less than 2 wins, that being Bowling Green, Ohio, Rutgers, sadly, and Toledo. Both of those teams, all of those teams being 1-3. And then 0-4, Northern Illinois. The Huskies, what happened? Led by Haskins and Deshaun Ryan. Both of those two just not looking too impressive. Chuck Haskins, he's got 776 yards. That's great, but only a 48.3 percentage on there. And he's given up 7 interceptions compared to his 3 touchdowns. He's a 51.5 QB rating. I'm sure defense have having their field day with, his play. And then even Deshaun, who's only played in that last game, he had 2 touchdowns to 1 interception, 282 yards. I believe we talked about that. But even down, the rushing attack, not really doing too well for them. Nothing going there. AJ Ford, he's trying to have his great year. He's got 30 catches for 391 yards. He's the Ted Hurst of this team. He's only got 1 touchdown, though. He's only got 1 touchdown. And then on the defensive side, you have the assets to be better than 0-4 is what I'm trying to say for the Northern Illinois Huskies this year. But then again, you got to look at who they face. Western Michigan, their first conference opponent. They beat them pretty handily. They lost to Fresno State very badly. They lost to us pretty badly, and that's probably one that they probably should not have lost that badly to. So not this team, not GSU. It shouldn't be anybody who's in that badly to GSU, let's be honest. Texas, even then, they kept it close. They had their chance to get their first win. That was that 2 overtime game we were talking about, and it looked like, maybe that switch in QB, maybe that switch in the lineup was looking pretty decent, looking good for them. It just, and it never really, they didn't get that chance to get the win. They gave up the last minute field goal. They gave up, and now where do you go from here? You're facing Bowling Green next. This could be your first win. You're facing Ohio after that. You're facing Toledo after that. Teams in your conference that are just barely better than you, or maybe not even better than you. Maybe you can play over them because you have the spread against every one of them. This could be a streak on. This could be 3-0. It could be 1-2. It could be 0-3. It just depends on how Northern Illinois can bounce back. Because for the Huskies, this is like Wisconsin. You didn't expect such a start for them. You expect them to at least be, 2-2, 1-3 right now. Give or take against maybe Fresno, maybe me, And where do you bounce back is what I'm trying to ask. Because you have your last OOC against Illinois. You can't win that game. Let's be honest. You can't win that game. You have Pittsburgh after that. You have West Virginia after that. That probably should be another loss for you. You have Central Michigan probably. You have the spread over Central Michigan. But the way Central Michigan's been playing, the Chippewas may come into that game hot. And if they come in hot, it's not a game that you can really, really win. And then Rutgers to end your season. So it's, can you pick it up and can you make things work now? Because you don't have much time to waste with Northern Illinois. With any team starting off 0-4, not to say you can't, be bowl eligible after that. Not to say you can't bring it back to just have a middle of the way season, just to have, a season that you can forget about besides that first couple losses. But the difference between this season and all-time bad for NIU is just how well can you bounce back. And if there's any coach that I think can bounce back, it's Coach Platt. But, you have to pick up the pace. You have to get something together. You have to make those lineup changes how they should be. And if you're keeping it close against Texas, this could be a team that can bounce back. It's just, a matter of do they actually do it. Because everything here is speaking in hypotheticals. And, we don't really look at hypotheticals like that. We like to look at more of what is instead of what can be. And so, because you really can't live in that world of hypotheticals when it comes down to the NZCFL. So, moving on, Conference USA. Now, this one, I said it'd be pretty interesting for the top 2 teams, both North Texas and Rice so far, 4-0. One has a very wildly different schedule than the other one. Rice is plus 202. over the teams that they face, and North Texas, who has the harder schedule, I'd imagine. Uh, so far, they've beaten North Carolina State by 1. They've beaten Wisconsin by 3. Steadily handled Cincinnati and UConn. And now we get into the conference schedule, which should be miles and miles easier than them. Even though their coach did profess to me, he thinks he'll probably lose against Ohio. Could struggle against what is the other team? Was it NDSU? I don't think so. I think this is probably clear steering up until they face Rice. Same thing for Rice up until they face North Texas. It's just two teams they're fighting for the conference. Let's be honest. They're fighting for whoever wins the division. Who wins that wins the conference. It's like the 49ers and Cowboys in the NFC back in the day. Whoever won that was pretty much going to win the Super Bowl, and that's pretty much what it feels like for both Rice and North Texas. Kudos to both of them. Kudos to GB and Justin for what they're doing on the year. As we move down, the only other 2-2 team, or 2 wins or better, is Florida Atlantic. They're 2-2, and then everybody else under them is 1-3, save for Maryland and Southern Miss, who are both 0-4. I do want to look at Florida Atlantic though. Why are they 2-2? Let's look at this one. Wins over the Golden Eagles, losing to Harvard and Florida State. They started off 0-2, but they did get that win and a win over Montana, who's now 0-4. Both of those two teams are now 0-4, and so we have a battle between the Owls. Owl Bowl. They're going against Rice next week. Rice should win by about maybe 20-30 points. So, are these the only two Owls here? Florida Atlantic and Rice, because I do not believe I've seen Temple at all. I probably would have, known if I seen Temple. No Temple. No Kennesaw State either, obviously. Rest in peace to them. Those are the big four of the Owls when it comes to the college world. So, yeah, Owl Bowl between those two. It should be a great win for Rice, I should imagine. As we look down, FAU, they're led by Louis Virgil, wide receiver. He's their best skill position player. As we get down to it, he's got 225 catches for 2 touchdowns, 225 yards on 21 catches for 2 touchdowns. I should say, I kind of mix them up together. It's not what I meant. A whole host of tight ends, actually. Wow, look at that. More tight ends on the roster than I've seen in a while. That's pretty okay. The defense is kind of lacking, and when your defense is lacking, you shouldn't have any chance at all of beating Rice. So I don't think they will beat Rice. But what I can say for them, so far, out of the teams that they have faced and the teams that they will face, they're probably 3rd, 4th in the conference, behind Kentucky. Maybe, it depends. Do they face Kentucky at all? They actually do not face Kentucky at all. So yeah, no Kentucky you have to face. They're probably 3rd or 4th in the conference, beyond them, because yeah, they are in the South Division. And I mean, probably 3rd team in the South Division if it gets to it, because you're better than. Well, it depends, because NC State can't pick it up, so maybe NC State comes in 4th in the South Division. But you're better than Maryland. You're better than Southern Miss, just to be more precise. So far, you're looking like better than the North Division. The South is obviously better than the North in the CUSA, based off the top 2 teams alone. But what you really do look for in the CUSA, because we know who all is going to, be the winners, the 2 winners of the conference, let's be honest. What you look for is those teams in the North to see what that's probably the bigger storyline, just because anybody can win that. This could be an anybody thing. This is like, it's not like much of anything in the college football world, because, it's wide open for anybody. This isn't like the AAC, who I'm about to talk to about in a minute, where you have top teams at both sides. This isn't like Sunbelt, where you have one top team that's probably going to kill the competition on the rest of them. Maybe Sunbelt West comes in as that side of the division that can't be open for anybody. Last year was Tulane. This year probably could be Kansas. Probably could be Kansas State. But yeah, this is the AAC North, where it could be Kentucky. could be who else is one in? Not even one in. I believe does Kentucky have 2 wins? No, they have one. Okay, who else is 1-3? Because the rest of the conference is 1-3 or 0-4. Could be Kentucky. NDSU might come back, bounce back, and win a couple of key games. May beat Kentucky. Who knows? I don't think it would be Wyoming, but I wouldn't be surprised if it would be, just because you're probably seeing 5-7, 6-6, maybe say 7-5 Kentucky win the conference, or 7-5 whoever win the conference. So it's like that other side of the Mountain West. If you wanted to kind of add to somebody, the American Athletic Conference, the 3 teams who are 4-0, Georgetown, Central Florida, and Delaware, are the 3 teams that you really have to worry about. Harvard, who so far has been putting up together a surprisingly good season, they're 3-1, and everybody under them is 1-3 or worse. Those being Memphis and South Florida, who are 0-4. Without a doubt, the top 4 is probably the best you're going to get out of this conference. Let's be honest, struggling across the board is everything under Harvard, and even Harvard has been surprising. They got a plus 25 in the point differential, but look at their schedule. Look who they've been beating. They could have easily been 2-2 going against Northwestern, but they came out with a win, surprisingly. They lost to Georgetown. It's obviously they're not on the same level as Georgetown, Delaware, and Central Florida. They don't face Central Florida at all. They do have a game against Delaware, which potentially could be one of the last losses that they take. I think they can beat Southern Methodist. I think they can beat, of course, they can beat South Florida and Memphis teams that they do play. Boston College might be their second to last win, that being the last out of conference versus an ACC opponent. And then right after that, Delaware. And then after that, you probably win your last couple of games against Princeton, Yale, and UConn. So overall, probably a 3-loss team, a 4-loss team is Harvard. You know, this is a team that, hey, they could probably be shock the world, but it's not going to amount for much because of look who's ahead of you. You know, a 3rd place finish in your division, it doesn't amount to much at all, regardless of how you spin it. You can't be 3rd place in any division and expect great things to happen to you. You can expect good things to happen to you. You know, even a winning record, you know, with how good you are, you should expect good things to happen to you. But as far as the ACC North, I mean, what do you gain from that? What can you learn from that? 3rd place in your division, 4th place in your conference. What do you learn from that? You know, you learn that you're better than half the conference. You're better than a lot of the teams at the bottom of the conference. But then again, you could put anybody in your slot, seemingly anybody in your slot, and a lot of teams would be better than half the conference. So maybe this is just a matter of, if there was a conference that could be a little bit more composite in, you know, we'd be talking about Harvard a lot more. But even now, they're doing pretty good things. As I do want to go back here. Let me go back to the Discord. Give me 1 second, guys. 1 second, and then we'll talk about the Sun Belt right here as we look at Troy, who is the number 1 team in the Sun Belt. They've got wins over 4 different opponents. I believe we talked about one of them. Was it... Who did we talk about against them? I know we mentioned Troy earlier. Let me look at their schedule. We talked about Mississippi State. They beat them, SEC opponent, but obviously the worst of them. They beat Coastal Carolina, that being the one game I remember Excel saying that he was worried about because they give them trouble sometimes, but no worries here. No worries against Arizona, and no worries against Wyoming. 39-20 win to open up their season. They've been doing pretty solid for themselves, and really, like I've been saying all year, don't have much of any type of challenge whatsoever this season. Your out-of-conference game, last out-of-conference game is against Purdue, and even then Purdue is at the bottom of the Big Ten. You got Kansas, you can beat Kansas. James Madison, you can beat James Madison. I don't think you should have any trouble against James Madison. That's probably one of the closer games of your schedule. Tulane, you can beat. App State, again, probably one of the closer games of your schedule, but even then, They're not the same App State that was going head to head with a lot of teams in the Sun Belt. This is kind of like an off year for them, in regards to Coach Austin. So this should be, hey, Sun Belt championship, undefeated, probably a spot in the playoffs or Tier 1 bowl, just depending on how the ranking committee views your schedule. But for Troy, it's pretty much a done deal. I mean, they could have simmed to the end of the season and got wins and stuff off of that. You know, Curley's having a good game against these opponents that he can beat, and it's just like, who stops them? You know, what defense stops this Troy team from running wild? What defense stops this Troy team from, profiting, prospering? What can you do to stop Troy when you're in this situation for any Sun Belt team? As we get into the end of that, I do want to look at the Week 5 games just to see what we can look into. This is the end of our conference outlook, and we'll get into the last part of the podcast for today, the Week 5 games, to see, what we can be on the lookout for, what games are probably games you want to watch. As I see immediately a game here, Navy and Florida State. This could either be a blowout on Navy's part, or Florida State can keep it close and hopefully potentially move up in the world of college football. Move up from 3-1 to maybe a 4-1 start for them throughout the first 5 games of the season. It should be something you can count on for them because they've been looking pretty good so far. But you still have to face Navy, who one loss was that upset loss they took against Northwestern, just overtime loss that they took against Northwestern. They're still, probably going to feel about that a little bit, but still back on the right track for Navy, because again, like I said, not many teams were going to compete with them as much. Florida State could probably be one of those teams. A little bit later, we have Iowa State and Nebraska. I feel like that's a game. Probably not game day worthy, but that's a game that you do want to look out for just in case. Can you see Nebraska upset Iowa State? Or is Iowa State going to run away with it and potentially, phantom clinch the division early? We'll get on to that one. We have Houston in Texas, the Cougars versus the Longhorns. That's probably a good game to watch because not only is Texas, one of the teams that you do watch out for in the Big 12, Texas this year. But I believe, they're probably having a year where it's like Houston does beat them. The Texas teams in that division are very competitive. They can swing either way. And Houston's been very solid so far to start their year. Maybe put Texas on quote-unquote upset watch. But, I wouldn't see them as too much of an upset. I say that this is a game Houston can win as we look forward to that. Moving on, I see Buffalo and Western Michigan. Either team or can be looking for their first win or their first loss of the season. Depends on who wins this one. I remember I told you guys earlier, only one team can win. Obviously, same case with Georgia LSU, which is a game that we will be looking at, that you should be looking at for next season as well. Not next season, next week as well. Only one team can win. And between those 2 games, 2 opponents on each side, undefeated, it means just a little bit more when it comes to who's going to outright get that win, who's going to stay undefeated throughout the season, and who should be looking to bounce back the week after. 2 teams that they can be very competitive. It's probably not such a close gap like LSU Georgia. But Buffalo, Western Michigan, Buffalo could be looking in for a scare here. Just depends on how well Western Michigan can plan for the Bulls, because one thing I know about Rhino and the Bulls, they do not go down easy. So that about wraps us up on this week's podcast. Once again, I am Coach Magic, head coach of GSU, bleeding blue all the way through, something like that. Either way, I do want to say thank you all for watching this one. I hope everything's going well as always. This took a toll on my voice because not only was I really not in the mood for this, I believe I caught a cold from my nephew. So I'm still trying to work through this. And what's the thing I had to remember? Timestamps. I'll try to work through getting timestamps for you all. other than that, let's look forward to the next couple of weeks. I hope everything's going well with you guys once again. Appreciate you for tuning in, and this will be the end of our podcast for this week. Next episode we can look forward to probably within the next couple weeks. I do want to look at the actual rankings, but I probably won't make a video on that just because rankings come out like before the week is played, so we don't get an update on who's on where. Just because the rankings come out just like right before game day, and it's like by that time you'd be making 2 episodes instead of just 1. So it's kind of not a good draw for this. But with that being said, I will check back in within the next couple of weeks, in-game weeks, I should say. And thank you all so much for watching. I hope everything was good for you guys. I hope the sound was okay. I'm still trying to work on a couple of things, but some things have been evolving, some things have been changing, and now we get into this is taking a toll on my voice. Thank you all so much, and I will see you guys next time.